So for Hurricane Sandy, my major assignments were specific to Bayonne, the city of Bayonne. As the Chief of Operations here, I was responsible for obviously the assignments that were within the city of Bayonne, but also as a role of Deputy Coordinator for the Office of Emergency Management, Emergency Medical Services. I was responsible for the countywide operations and any mutual aid resources that we may determine that we need in the county during the storm and thereafter the storm. As far as Sandy and call volume, it was something that was completely unprecedented. In the fact that it happened so suddenly, I would say that the 6 hours from the time landfall occurred, the 6 hours from I believe around 6 p to 12 a, it was just completely ferocious in the city of Bayonne and countywide. The amount of calls that were handled were, again, also unprecedented. I think there were approximately 800 to 1,000 calls within that 6 hour period, and it extended across disciplinary lines. What we found most is that everybody was doing everything. So we were doing swift water rescue, we were doing evacuations from houses where we had neck-high water, we had live power lines that were down in the water. It was extremely dangerous, and I have said it on many times, but in my career there was probably 2 times where I actually feared for the responders and I feared for my own well-being, that being 9/11 and the night that Sandy made landfall in New Jersey. Complete power in the city around 11 p.m., which we then found out soon thereafter that it was countywide. So communications to outside communities became extremely difficult at that time. However, we were able to maintain our radio frequency, our UHF radio frequency throughout. We did have difficulty in accessing some roads, whereas we had to park our vehicles far away in a safe area and make our way to the house as best as we could. And in some cases, the water was so high, specifically the southern end of Bayonne, where 1st and 2nd Street flooded up to the 2nd floor of people's windows. It was almost impossible to access, and we were utilizing wave runners at one point to evacuate folks from their houses.
Where'd you get wave runners?
We commandeered them. We can erase that. We found them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember at one point I was responding to a job, and it was one job after the next, and I remember responding to one of our main thoroughfares on Avenue E, heading southbound, and I remember swerving around a roof which had come off the YMCA, and I literally called that in to say that, you know, there was a roof in the middle of the street, so for all units to proceed with caution, because there were literally pieces of houses and buildings in the middle of the road, and there was a power outage. You could not see. So, you know, these were things that, again, you had never seen in your life, and this was just commonplace. And it was difficult to even hear yourself, you know, calling this in, but this is what we were dealing with. Able to handle the call volume that we had, and we tended to the call volume quite well with the resources that we had. At around 1 a.m. when the storm finally subsided a bit and the winds subsided, and the water actually started to recede, we did receive a call from an area hospital, Palisades Medical Center, to evacuate their facility, an emergency evacuation, which became a very difficult process in coordinating and then effecting in the morning. They had 83 at that point census where they needed to transport out immediately because the waters had encroached on their facility. They had lost their emergency generators due to the water. And initially the call came in, and they were in such a panic that they stated that they wanted to evacuate folks through the windows because the water had encroached so high. Obviously that wasn't something that we could do, and we had to wait for the waters to recede before we can come up with a plan to go there and evacuate them in an emergent fashion. At that point, it was 1 a.m. and it was complete darkness throughout the county. We realized that we weren't going to be able to evacuate with ambulances because we had such a great loss within the county, which, as this was still an active scene, we were still getting damage reports. Jersey City Medical Center had lost 8 ambulances. Hoboken had lost all 3 of their ambulances. This was something that was just catastrophic, and we didn't realize or recognize the resources that we would have for something like this. So we had to plan and think outside the box, and we realized that the only way to affect this type of rescue would be to use the medical ambulance buses that were implemented into our response plans in the state of New Jersey. Through the use of our MACs, our multi-agency coordination system, we were able to go out to them and we were able to mobilize 4 MABs, or medical ambulance buses, for the use of the evacuation of Palisades Medical Center at 6 a.m. the following morning. They are stationed throughout the state. There's 12 of them. We were able to utilize 2 from Hudson County, our home county here, and 1 from Bergen County and 1 from Passaic County. We did make the request early on. As soon as we had the evacuation request come through, we were able to utilize the MACs who were able to reach out to those contacts, and they were there at 6 a.m. We asked for them to muster at 6 a.m. Through OEM, we also asked for 30 North Hudson Regional firefighters to assist in the evacuation because we knew it would be labor intensive. To load the buses, we knew that just the 3 folks on the buses were not going to be sufficient. We were going to have to evacuate the folks from the facility and then load them on. The bus holds 20 patients supine, so to load those, to get them to go, we needed the manpower. And thank God the North Hudson Regional Fire Department stepped up. They were there at 6 a.m. with light stanchions, and they worked. In a situation like this where it was something that we had never experienced before, it's easy to say that you're going to get some downtime and rest time, but practically speaking, it just didn't happen. We had people running 36 hours, and after that it became quite evident that those folks needed downtime, and we did mandate them to go down and to rest and to eat and to see their families, because some of these folks hadn't seen their families and taken care of them. And personally speaking, I live in Morris County, and the power was out there for 13 days. So, it was difficult to be here and to have your family home with no power and to make sure that they were taken care of. These are things, again, that, are taken for granted. When you're in this field, you realize that, you're there for others, and sometimes your family has to fend for themselves, and it's difficult. After the winds had died down a bit and we were getting damage reports in from the other communities, there was an obvious need going on within the county, specifically with the city of Hoboken and the city of Jersey City. Jersey City had lost 8 of their ambulances, and Hoboken had lost all 3 of their ambulances for their community. They called and requested mutual aid. Obviously, it was difficult to get the mutual aid from within the county and from within the state, for that matter, given the fact that this was a statewide event. We realized at that point that we were going to have to pull from the EMAC requests that were made earlier in the week through the State Department of Health. And so we made sure that we were able to get them ambulance strike teams in to assist them with their municipality's response for the next 2 weeks. In Jersey City, I believe they had 2 BLS strike teams, which are 10 ambulances, answering calls for 2 weeks in Jersey City. I believe they took close to 2,000 calls in the city alone, just on mutual aid. Hoboken had a 1 BLS strike team in there for approximately 4 days and cleared up their jobs as well. So it was an incredible effort by the out-of-state resources through the EMAC compact that we have, and that we put into play early, which was very important. To be quite honest with you, at no point during the storm did we pull trucks off the road. We realized that if we did that, then those people were not going to get the help that they needed. We realized that this is a profession where sometimes we put ourselves in danger, and we had to answer the call. And at the end of the day, we did. That's certainly something that's up for debate, especially moving forward as far as lessons learned. But during this particular storm, everybody functioned, nobody pulled off the road. Obviously, one of the huge issues, not just within Hudson County, but statewide, was the fuel issue. And fortunately in Bayonne, we have a city garage and a city fuel pump, which did receive fuel deliveries. So we were okay as far as our vehicles were concerned. However, the general public, which was the case everywhere throughout the state, was extremely restless. And we had fuel lines that spanned 2 miles long, which also clogged streets, made it very difficult to pass through and respond to jobs. Folks became very unruly. It was something that was, again, quite surreal to see, and your hearts just went out to these people because, you know, there was no recourse. You know, we didn't know exactly when fuel would be delivered. We had no idea, but it was something that was quite surreal to see. I think that everybody gave 110%. I think people gave of themselves like I have never seen. You know, this industry finds a way to just always impress you, and people's efforts always seem to impress me when we're faced with the worst. You know, nobody packs it in, and nobody says this is too much to handle. People truly were out of their own homes. Their homes washed away, and they were working the entire week for the betterment of the community, for the betterment of the state. So the group effort that was given during Sandy, specifically from an EMS perspective, was incredible.